The This week has been another exciting week. We have a lot of changes, especially in the United States, with the new administration coming in and signing a lot of executive orders. I put out a video yesterday on specifically on some of those orders, and I hope that you will go back and review that. There, there were over 200, and it was uh, really too much for me to cover. Seems I've got a limited amount of time to be able to do this right now. In the world of markets, the oil, West Texas Intermediate crude, settled at 74.66. Brent North Sea crude dropped to 78.50, and the OPEC basket was at settled at $80.77. Gold settled at 2,771.73, and silver was at $30.64. Baltic dry goods exchange was at 778. Actually had dropped a good bit. Uh, Conflicts and wars continue as they have been for the past few weeks, many of them for the past few years. I was interested to note that I did not hear anything about Pakistan and Afghanistan. Perhaps this is a time that they're just getting prepared, or hopefully they're finding new ways to uh, settle their disputes. Instability continues in various places. The Northern Triangle in Central America, Haiti, Libya, Ethiopia, Somalia, and various places like that. As far as naval deployments go, the USS America actually departed Sasebo, Japan finally, and is operating in the East China Sea conducting routine operations. The USS George Washington remains in Yokosuka, Japan. The Carl Vinson continues routine operations in the South China Sea. The USS Abraham Lincoln, it was that last report was in its home base at San Diego, California. The USS Harry Truman is conducting operations in the Red Sea. The Nimitz arrived in San Diego, California on Monday, but then departed on Thursday, and no word of where it is sailing at the moment. Also, no word um, on the USS Ronald Reagan, the USS Tripoli, the Wasp, the Gerald R. Ford, and the USS Iwo Jima. And finally, the USS George H.W. Bush remains in its home port of Norfolk, Virginia. In Europe, the markets, the DAX settled at 21,394.93. FTSE was at 85,0235. CAC 40 was at 79,2762. And the IBEX was at 11,982.60. I thought it was important to note that Baltic maritime patrols are beginning in northern Europe along the Baltic Sea between Denmark, Germany, Finland, Norway, Sweden, the and Russia. They are patrolling for the Russian ships that are coming and going. The Russian ships are moving sanctioned Russian oil, and the ships are also watching because the trolls are also watching because several of these Russian ships or Russian associated ships have been conducting alternative warfare operations. We've had a couple of situations where they were dragging their anchors and they cut the undersea cables. One between Latvia and I believe it was Finland, another one I think between Sweden and Germany, but don't quote me on that one. I do know that the cables were cut. I'm not certain. I don't remember exactly which cables were cut. Germany, I find it interesting how the pendulum has been swinging lately politically. Germany's front runner to be the next prime minister has presented himself as much more conservative. He's presented himself as the antithesis to Angela Merkel. The trouble is that he is really tied to her legacy. He's trying to keep more politicians from defecting to what they call the far right Alternative for Germany party, the AFD party. English English people are upset as the details have emerged of the knife attack in Southport. At the sentencing hearing of Axel Rudakubana, he was given a minimum of 52 years in prison. And the public are asking questions as to why the attacker remained in the country despite repeated threats and acts of violence. They're they need to question their legal system as much as and politicians as much as the people in the United States need to question theirs. Turkey continues to play both sides of the Russia versus West conflict and now offers itself as a transit hub for Russian energy heading to Europe despite sanctions on that energy. In Asia, with the markets, starting with the markets, the Nikkei was at 39,931.98. The SSE index was at 3252.63. The Hang Seng index was at 20,066 19. The BSE Sansex was at 76,190.46. And the Nifty 50 was at 23,092.20. Conflict continues in the South China Sea. The Philippines arrested a suspected Chinese spy. Taiwan has noted that 85% of its national security cases involved retired army or police officers. In the Middle East, three Israeli hostages were initially released over the Palestinian conflict. These were people that were taken during the October 7 uh, attack in 2023. I understand that an additional four people have been released also. Iran's new president, uh, and please forgive me if I mispronounce this, but uh, Peza, Pezeshkian is trying to engage the new Trump administration in an effort to promote peace. Even as the Iranian president is talking peace, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard was revealing new underground bases. They put out a video this past week to show us their their latest capabilities. Despite sanctions, Saudi Arabia bought a Russian weapon system, or is in the process of buying a Russian weapon systems. Leaked documents show the sale occurred back in 2021. It was an air defense system that is made in, obviously made in Russia. In Africa, over 20 people were killed in clashes between security forces and Islamic State forces in Somalia. Nigerian forces took down a child trafficking syndicates. So apparently plural. Now, one of the interesting, I want to say controversial. Well, for some people it's controversial, for other people it's not. South Africa has passed an expropriation bill that allows the government to seize white-owned farms with little or no compensation. The goal is to compensate the indigenous families and tribes for land that they had lost years ago. Now, hopefully, the government has a plan to maintain the food production because this has been practiced in other countries previously, and those countries struggled. They actually saw famine and starvation occurring. I also ran across an interesting development. This dates back to 2023, but there is an alliance called the Alliance of the Sahel States. These are southern Saharan states. The nations of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso they have created a mutual defense pact and an economic zone. They're trying to allow their people to travel freely and to trade freely amongst all the nations. Within the territory, uh, what they call the AES, there there are various terrorist and insurgent groups uh, and um, and separatist groups. These this coalition is meant to fight against them. They are also meant uh, uh, to limit the colonial powers of French and United States. The these Many of these nations are kicking out the colonial powers. I found it interesting. Recently, I found out that it was interesting that the French were charging the former colonial states for being colonies, and I believe it was $20 million a year. Anyway, these nations have gotten together and they have decided that they're going to provide their own security and they're not going to have ties to Western powers, to France and the United States and the UN. The Confederation's stated goal is to pool resources to build energy, communications infrastructure, establish a common market, implement a monetary union under a proposed currency, and allow flow movement of persons, enable industrialization, and invest in agricultural, mines, and the energy sector with the end goal of federalizing into a single sovereign state. Now, the Americas. Dow Jones Industrial Average was up to 424, 25. S&P was down to 60, or I'm sorry, was I believe it was up to 610124, and the Nasdaq settled at 19,954.30. Now, in Ontario, Canada, a historic cocaine bust of 835 kilograms occurred, worth an estimated $83 million. And they found that this cocaine had ties to the Mexican Jalisco cartel. In the United States, a new AI project was launched called Stargate, and it was launched by Oracle, OpenAI, and a bunch of international investors to compete with Chinese artificial intelligence efforts. It begins with $100 billion in 10 locations, and it's expected to expand to 20 eventually. And as he was walking out the door, the former president pardoned a number of people, including Fauci, Milley, the J6 committee, and many of his family members. The It was interesting that the pardons were very broadly worded, and I imagine that they will have legal challenges in the future. It just seems that it's become a game now. That we'll let you go and commit any crimes that you want, and we'll just pardon you for it later. Even as the fires continue to burn, additional fires have erupted in California. The Hughes fire burned 10,000 acres this week. The last I heard, it had burned 10,000 acres. And this weekend, rain is expected, which could lead to landslides. Uh, Criminal illegal immigrants are being rounded up, including murderers, rapers, and pedophiles. And they're being put on board aircraft and sent home. Mexico is refusing to accept those flights. I don't know if there's any other nations that are refusing to accept flights or not, but they've begun. Uh, the new uh, uh, head of border security, Tom Homan, he's gotten right to work. In a related incident, the offices of an immigration lawyer were raided by the DOJ and FBI. The focus of the raid is unclear at the moment, but the attorney had bragged about crimmigration and his expertise in that area. That's that's very interesting. The new president of the United States suspended security clearances for 51 officials who had claimed that a certain laptop was Russian misinformation. That same laptop has been proven to be true, to be accurate, and was actually used in trial against him or against the owner. The new president is seeking to designate drug cartels as terrorist organizations. Now, most people are supportive of this. There is a little bit of pushback with some experts noting that fighting drug cartels is rather different than fighting military units, despite these cartels being very well funded, very well organized, armed, and employing many military or former military individuals and many former police officers. The uh, the new U.S. president is also making threats to Russia of sanctions if they don't come to a peace deal with over the conflict in Ukraine. A similar threat is has gone out to Ukraine and telling them that they need to come to the table. Now, previously, the new president had promised to release intelligence files on the assassinations of JFK, uh, John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. Uh, Now, some of this has already been released, and I've seen some of the documents, and they were actually very disturbing. Some of the information that was being passed about some of our past heroes. Unfortunately, that's kind of how is made. You when you start getting into the details, you find out that it can get very ugly. The last thing that I want to note, and because it calls into question the motives and motivation of our government. The new president took a trip to North Carolina, Western North Carolina, that was devastated by a hurricane, Hurricane Helene, just a few months ago. And he offered additional help to the residents of that area, and he promised more government assistance. He also decided to cut all the bureaucracy and said permits, I guess he's talking about federal permits, are being waived so that people can rebuild their homes. This offer of additional aid calls into question why the federal government delayed aid in the first place. Even state leaders were accused of dragging their feet. Locals had to quietly conduct rebuilding efforts of roads, bridges, and homes with little to no outside government help. In just a few days, the new administration has opened up more resources. I mean, this just questions what was the previous administration doing? It calls into question the dedication of many in governments. Calls into question many people in government's dedication to the people. The current president called for overhauling FEMA, which I think is way overdue. We saw some other incidents, some other documents came out that showed that they were willing to bypass certain groups of people because of their political association. That's just unacceptable. This is a situation that I hope everyone is watching and realizing how little your federal government regards you. And that's just another reason why you cannot just trust them. You have to hold them accountable and make sure that they're doing what you want, not what they want. So that wraps it up for this week, for me for this week. And I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are watching as new events unfold and as things change. And it'll be interesting to see how things, how the next week unfolds. Um, Much love to everybody. I hope that you're doing well. Hope that you're spending some time with your friends and family and working on yourself. And uh, I encourage you to prepare yourselves for the changes that are coming. Thanks again. This is Jeff Rains with Foundation of Civilization. Please like, share, and subscribe, and let your friends know what's going on around the world.